Before I even begin, you've probably noticed the camera here before at the 9:30. We only do it at the 9:30. And we put these on YouTube. And talk about a means of evangelization. I've gotten notes from all over the country from people who listen and watch our own worship and these homilies. So we even had to have people that have come from different places to worship with us because of these. So they're a means of evangelization, and I even got a note from someone I hadn't seen in 20 years who kind of stumbled across this, and now I'm back in touch with them. So I want to thank Alan for this wonderful ministry that they're doing here for the parish. Not many parishes do that. Let's give them a hand. A homily, okay. So, have you ever noticed when we say something or we read something and the intended meaning doesn't quite match with what is perceived? I was thinking about something that happened years ago in one of my other parishes. It was a bigger parish. They had a lot of different meetings. They had a group of Weight Watchers. And they had it in one of the buildings. And I remember I walked by, and on the door, the sign said, Weight Watchers, 7 o'clock. And then right below it, it said, enter through the double doors in the back. I don't think the person that wrote that had the intention that that single door was not going to be big enough for these poor people in Weight Watchers. Apparently, the door was locked because there was some maintenance stuff going on, and so they had to go in the back. But I always thought about that, those poor people. Kind of discouraging even before they go into the meeting. Well, doors and gates have a very prominent place as an image in Scripture. And Jesus uses them at a number of places throughout the Gospels. And we hear about that image in today's Gospel. And I think that's an example of a perceived and an intended meaning not matching up. Because when I first look at that, on the surface level, I'm thinking, it sounds to me to strive through the narrow gate. Sounds to me that this is going to be a difficult thing to enter into the kingdom of heaven. When this person asks Jesus, will few be saved? Strive through the narrow gate. You're going to have to probably go back to the double doors. It's going to be difficult to get into heaven. That's the perceived understanding, at least probably for many of us. But that's probably not the intended message. Just to put a little bit of context, background to this. What did the people in Jesus' day were probably thinking when Jesus said that the first time? Cities, large towns of that time, most of them had walls around the city. And those cities and having those walls were meant to be a fortification, a means of defense against the enemy. Some of the bigger cities even had 2 walls. And all of those places with those walls always had a main gate. And if you ever look in a Bible dictionary, I was looking at them the other day, and some of those gates, they're big areas, and when you go inside, they're segmented. They're kind of like small rooms on the side, kind of like a customs area. So a person would have to go through that main gate, and a guard, you go to the side to one of these segmented areas, and a guard would probably question you before you could get into the city. And this was a means of protecting the people of the city from any enemies. Now, there was always at least one other entry-exit point. And if the city was large, there would probably be several, or maybe 2 or 3 in strategic areas. But those gates were very small. They were narrow. Only citizens. Now, during that time, that was during the Greco-Roman influence, where many of the cities and towns took upon themselves many of the attributes of that culture, including governance. So a lot of those places were governed sort of like a city-state. So you had citizens of the city, and only citizens could enter into those narrow gates. Those who were insiders, who were members of that place, who were known. Only outsiders, the non-citizens, could enter into the city by way of the large gate, what was known as the market gate. They couldn't go through those narrower gates. That's probably what the people were thinking when Jesus said that the first time. Jesus was basically saying, when he said strive to enter through the narrow gate, he was probably saying strive to become a citizen of the kingdom of heaven. Strive to become an insider, a member, someone who is known within the family of God. Don't assume, don't be presumptuous to think that a casual association will be enough when actually a genuine relationship is needed. Because there will be maybe some of those insiders who take it for granted. And when the day comes, they will be shocked to realize that they are no longer an insider, but an outsider. And they will be further shocked to see that those who they thought were outsiders, who are now coming from the north, the south, the east, and the west, are indeed the insiders. Strive to be a citizen of the kingdom of heaven, and don't wait to the last moment. Whereas Jesus says, the first shall be last, and the last shall be first. Don't presume. Don't assume. Work out your salvation, as St. Paul says, with fear and trembling each and every day. Last night I was telling the folks I had the 4:30 Mass, and I remember a poll, and I was trying to find it. I couldn't find it. I remembered some of the numbers. I thought it was maybe a few months ago. It could have been a year, maybe 2 years ago. But there was a poll that was done by USA Today. I think it was USA Today. And they did this poll with a number of people. 72% of those people rated themselves as having a good to excellent chance of getting into heaven. Those same people said that 60% of their friends and family had that same chance. For them, 72%. My friends and family, nah. And then some of the other things that they polled I thought were interesting. I don't remember the numbers. But they felt that, or they said, that they were spiritual but not religious, that they were nominally connected to some denomination, but rarely went to church. But I have a good and excellent chance of getting into heaven. Jesus is warning us, cautioning us against the sin of presumption, of self-righteousness. You know, even Jesus, a few chapters later, shares a story about this. And Sure, you're familiar with it. There were two men who went into the temple to pray. One was a Pharisee. The other was a tax collector. Now notice, Pharisee, the insider, part of the religious elite, someone I got to keep notice on for myself, so-called religious elite. The tax collector, the outsider, the one who is, who is cast away, the sinner. These two men go into the temple to pray. The Pharisee, with head unbowed, looking up, and says, "Oh God, I thank you that I'm not like the rest of humanity, that I'm not greedy or envious or adulterous, not like that tax collector back there. For I fast twice a week, and I pay tithe on all my income." Meanwhile, the tax collector barely comes into the temple, keeps his head down, beats his chest, and simply says, "Oh God, be merciful to me, a sinner." And Jesus says, that person will go home justified, while the other one will not. For those who exalt themselves shall be humbled, but those who humble themselves shall be exalted. Strive to enter into the narrow gate, my friends. Strive to be a citizen of the kingdom of heaven. Don't wait. Begin now. Working out your salvation with fear and trembling. You know what the good news is, my friends? Isn't that why we're here today? May the Lord then give us that grace each and every day to be a citizen of heaven here and now by what we say and what we do. God bless you.